today's stage, and somebody who stays in the breakaway for a long period of time today and amasses a big number of points can steal the lead in this competition away from Jens Voigt, and that will be on somebody's mind.
Well, all the enthusiasts here have made this very insignificant little hill called Blubberhouses look like the top of Alpe d'Huez. Look at this. Let's go with the crowd. They come round the corner. There's the banner. Winner takes all. It's only going to be a point, but they're going to have a little dig for it, though. Cyril Lemoine has opened up the sprint. He's being chased by Armindo Fonseca, but I don't think he's going to get it. Winner takes all. 1 point then goes to Cyril Lemoine.
Hard way to earn himself a single point. Very shortly, they'll start to swing around to the south and line up, as you said, just a little bit earlier for Keighley. Huge crowd over the top here. Lemoine gets himself that single point, but there's a lot more time points available. Once they go through Keighley, they'll start to line up for Oxenhope Moor. That's a third category climb, where there are points for the first two riders to go over there.
When I used to organise the Tour of Britain milk race, Paul, a few years ago, I used to climb Oxenhope Moor, and I gave it a first category tag, and the organiser of the Tour de France have given it a third category tag.
Well,
the
big problem is, Phil, the problem with the milk races, it doesn't go over the Col du Galibier, which is about 25 kilometres long. So you've got to sort of work out the categorisations and put it into perspective a fraction. I know it was probably a first category climb in the United Kingdom, but when you start to think of the Tourmalet, the Galibier,
all right. You made your point.
Okay, thank you.
153 kilometres still to ride. The peloton are still to top Blubberhouses. They'll come up as one, I think. We're looking at them right now. Bernie Eisel seems to do as much talking as pedaling in the peloton on the left of our picture there.
Just spotted Ted King in the middle there for Team Cannondale. He's done a lot of work in the early part of this race. He's got a bit of a revenge to pull on the Tour de France after the accident he had in Corsica last year, and that elimination for a fraction of a minute, just seconds, had him pulled out and eliminated. He didn't finish inside of the time, and I think this year he'll want to go a little bit further than that, but he's very motivated today by the fact that Team Cannondale believe that Peter Sagan can get himself the overall lead. He just has to get rid of one man, if you like, and that of course is Marcel Kittel. But it's all going to be today a question of time, of position in the sprint, because there are no time bonuses in the Tour de France this year, as there have been many years ago, and I think it makes it a much more exciting race in the early stages.
Just looking at these crowds enjoying the sight of the Tour, it would have been absolute injustice if the weather had been bad today and inclement, because we wouldn't have seen these pictures of these people, and they wouldn't have been very happy sitting up there, because when the rain comes here, it also becomes freezing cold. They've got a tremendous view sight of the Tour de France. The Welsh flag flying down there, that'll be for Geraint Thomas, who's on the Sky team. We saw the Isle of Man flag at the top of Blubberhouses just a few moments ago. That would have been, of course, from Mark Cavendish, who sadly didn't start the Tour this morning, if you're just joining our coverage, after his accident yesterday, and he's absolutely devastated. He admits that it was his fault, the accident, and he was on the telephone last night and rang up Simon Gerrans and apologised, and Simon just thought it was a very nice thing to do. Well, there's a crash at the rear of the peloton somewhere, and the camera, there it is, down on the edge of the road. It's one of the NetApp riders who's gone down there, Paul.
That'll be Hozarski from Poland. Doesn't seem to be panicking too much. He'll be waiting for the team car to come up alongside him, making sure that everything's in order before he pulls away again. And I think, as you mentioned yesterday, Phil, all of the riders on this NetApp squad are first-time participants in the Tour de France. The main field now over the top of Blubberhouses. So 2 minutes, well, 3:30, sorry, over the top of the climb, and you can't get a more beautiful view than that. There's a little spot of water on the camera lens there. Just looking out from the commentary position here, it looks still as if the clouds are nice and high in the sky. So theoretically, the thunderstorms may well hold off and keep this a nice dry run into the finish, because if it gets wet on the run down... Oh, there's another crash. Oh, there's a crash right in the middle there. There's a number of... It doesn't look... It's one of those crashes that the race referees like to call a chute sans gravité. But, you know, many of the referees probably haven't fallen off like this. Let's have a look at it again.
Well, I'm absolutely amazed, and this is only the riders doing. They can't blame the crowd for this. Very orderly on the side of the road here. Also, and Simon Gerrans, who crashed badly yesterday, riding away in that white jersey, involved in this one as well. He must be thinking this is not his lucky tour at the moment. Jan Barter, the Czech champion, also riding off. He's got a... They all look all okay, which is the good news. One or two of the bikes are in a spot of bother here.
Louis Vestre, the former Dutch champion. He's not panicking at all. There's a few good souvenirs at the side of the road there. One or two spectators picking up the bottles that have dropped off the riders' bikes. But it actually happened, if we look at it one more time here, it happened halfway down the peloton, and I would think that's a little touch of wheels. And because the road is so narrow, there's a ricochet domino effect right the way back down the main field again. It just accentuates the point. I say it all the time, but yes, you have to ride in the top 15 to 20 places, which is why we can see Peter Sagan in that white jersey, surrounded by his teammates. Alberto Contador is not far away. And over on the left-hand side, I can see a couple of riders from Team Sky, so I presume that Chris Froome is not far from the front either.
And there's the situation now to try and repair the damage. The chase is on here as the riders rapidly try to catch up as we start to head down to Keighley. We're going to the sprint of the day at Keighley before the actual finish. The first 20 riders get points down at Keighley, and Peter Sagan will want to be involved in that, as well might be the case now for Marcel Kittel, having won the stage yesterday. A very good road surface. Nothing can be blamed, I think, other than the fact 197 cyclists on a highway this narrow. Touches of wheels does occur. At the front, they're not panicking. They're not trying to ride fast to hold everybody off the back, because they'll be checking around to see if likely winners finally of the Tour de France in Paris are down. And if they were, then they wouldn't race, because it's a gentleman's agreement. You don't attack a rider when he's down.
You can see they've spread out across the road. That's an indication that there's no major pressure on. They're not panic-stricken by the composition of that leading group of 7 riders. They know that on the running towards the finish, they can pull back 3, 4, 5 minutes quite easily. Once they go over Home Moss, though, that's not really the end of the climbing. For me, it's the start of the climbing over Home Moss. Then, of course, they've got that long climb over Woodhead Pass.
Well, the BMC boys here seem to be waiting for one of the rides, and I'm wondering if they might have trapped TJ Van Garderen in that little plummet back there, because they're slipping off the back, waiting to see who is coming up. In the distance, the convoy of the Tour de France, slowly but surely coming together again.
Well, as 1 or 2 riders have gone down quite nicely. That's just for Sky there. That's Bernie Eisel on the left-hand side, a good team captain. He was for a long time the man who nursed Mark Cavendish around Tours de France, but he decided to stay on board Team Sky. Just having a quick look here, they're at 3rd row back in the lime yellow jersey there, the fluorescent yellow jersey. Alberto Contador looking very comfortable. That was Bryce Felu moving forward as well for the Britannia team on the right-hand side. There's Chris Froome about 3rd or 4th. Geraint Thomas is the 3rd place rider in the white sunglasses there from Wales. Richie Porte is in 2nd place. Team Sky, among many of the teams that came across here to Yorkshire in the early part of the year, just to have a look at these roads. It's so important they felt these opening stages were, because of the narrow nature of the roads, the steepness of some of the climbs down towards the end, that they felt that it was quite important to keep themselves up to scratch on how this race was going to unfold. Alberto Contador, on the other hand, said, well, he was quite happy to have a look at a video. But they've all studied the race. They've all studied the race finish. 3:45. Clouds starting to look just a little bit heavier up there. As we go back to the leaders now, and again, as we leave Blubberhouses behind us, we now start to cruise down away from Blubberhouses, down towards Keighley, which will be the sprint point of the day. That's TJ Van Garderen down there. And it looks as if he was in fact involved in that accident. Maybe his bike was damaged because he's on a spare machine. You can notice from that machine there that there is no race number on it. Doesn't appear to show any sign of broken skin, so he's riding his way back through the main field. He's got a teammate up alongside him, Marcus Burkhardt. You can spot him quite easily because he rides in those fluorescent yellow shoes. He's always been a big helper of Cadel Evans. Doesn't seem to be too much panic on board the TJ Van Garderen Express there as they make their way back through, but he has certainly changed his machine.
Yeah, has he got a problem? No, he's just put a computer back on his bike, one of his SRAM computers there, because obviously one's dropped off. That's cost a few bob then. Anyway, he's back in the convoy now. He is having to concentrate. Now, I did notice that it seemed that Bernard Eisel had gone to the front to slow that peloton down. They won't try to hit a race leader if he's been involved in an accident. So we'll see about that as we've rejoined the leaders up front now. 3:48 the gap at the moment. It might go up a little bit now, because these guys will be unaware of what's going on behind it just for the moment. Remember, we're heading down to Keighley for the big sprint.
Yeah, but first, before they get there, they've got to go through the small little village of Addingham into Silsden and then drop down into Keighley. And as you've said a couple of times, Phil, I'm expecting a massive crowd in Keighley. Pretty much home to a very strong cycling community over the years.
Well, Silsden is virtually part of Keighley these days. As we plunge into Silsden, we're just going to see an awful lot of people. 3 minutes and 46 seconds. And Van Garderen has got a team all around him now as we look at the peloton. Steady downhill. We're losing height again as we come over the top of Blubberhouses. There's the peloton. Still 1 or 2 riders at the rear of the field. But once the peloton settles down, the cars will repack, and then those riders left behind will be able to get through the slipstream of the cars. As long as they don't hover behind the cars and keep leapfrogging them, nobody will say anything. So there's the big peloton splitting at the moment. We're now bound for Silsden and Keighley. As you look at the peloton now, they're coming into Addingham. Massive crowd here. The leaders have gone through, and just joining at the back of the field is TJ Van Garderen. So his whole team went back for him, pulled him back through. So they're all together. Also Rodriguez again, Purita Rodriguez, he was behind, and he's also back in the main field.
You can see they're getting a little bit nervous in this main peloton right now as they've just gone over the Wharfe River, which is 97 kilometers long, and they're interested in the sprint point coming up next. Giant Shimano, and they will, I think, try and look after that sprint point for their man Marcel Kittel, who leads the race overall. He leads the green jersey points competition with 45 points to Peter Sagan's 45. Now they're locked on time because Peter Sagan got himself points at the intermediate sprint point on yesterday's stage. Sitting at the back there, the new French national champion in the red, white and blue jersey, that is Arnaud Demare. He won that title in a sprint just over a week ago in France, not too far away from Futuroscope. This is the small streets of Addingham, with 10 kilometers to go to the sprint point. This is Giant Shimano on the front. Interesting to note that the riders in the dark blue jersey over on the left-hand side of Movistar, those are the riders of Alejandro Valverde, the Spanish squad, but they've also got a rider who placed well up in the sprint competition yesterday, and that's Juan Jose Rojas. He's a good sprinter. Moving forward as well, despite the loss of Mark Cavendish yesterday, not starting this morning, Omega Pharma Quick-Step. Designed to take a fairly easy ride at the back. Cyril Gauthier, number 154. He's a French rider on the Europe car squad. Just in front of him, wearing 67, Laurens Tendam. Interesting character, Laurens Tendam. He didn't come into the sport till very late on in life when he thought he'd have a crack at cycling, and turned out to be rather good. He's seen some dramatic crashes over the years. In fact, a couple of years ago, we saw him severely stitched up after a crash on his face in one of the Pyrenean stages, but he got up, finished the stage, and continued on to finish the tour as well. 141 kilometers to go. We're now really heading into the moors, not far away from Ilkley Moor. Lots of conversation going on between the riders from Team Sky and the team car behind. That's Danny Pate on the left-hand side for Sky. hails from Colorado Springs. 5.5%. This is not actually a categorized climb as we move away from the center of Addingham. Heading down towards the next spot of the day, which will be Silsden, then into Keighley. We'll start to pick up a slightly more favourable wind then. Once we leave Heathley, we'll go down through Hebden Bridge, where the riders will face their feeding station, climb away over Ripponden into Greetland, and then down towards Huddersfield, Holmfirth, and then Home Moss, which is a real difficult climb. It's categorised as second category climb. It's the hardest race of the Tour de France so far, and I think that's where we'll start to see a little bit of pressure being applied at the front end of this main field, because that's where the race really does start to get ripply. Looking at Cyril Lemoine from Team Cofidis. Clouds are starting to get a little bit fluffy, but the finishing line is still, for the moment, is looking quite dry. Bernie Eisel. You can see the wind is starting to pick up now. The gap down to 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Just a quick reminder of the 7 riders in the lead. Blel Kadri of AG2R. He's on the front on the right-hand side there. Bart de Klerk, he's sitting on the back, number 133. Peric Kemener, Europe car in the green jersey. Matthew Boucher on the front in the black of Trek Factory Racing. Cyril Lemoine of Cofidis in the red and white, just dropping back from the front. David de la Cruz from NetApp, and yes, we're at the Tour de France, but we are in Yorkshire. And Armindo Fonseca of Bretagne, the team which was brought in at the last minute, Bretagne Sèche Environnement. So there's Bernie Eisel. Xavier Zandier was a rider from Team Sky, just sitting on the front. They realised today, no, not a day when Chris Froome could lay down the foundations to win the Tour de France for a second time, is the sort of stage where you have to be attentive. It's a nervous day for these riders on these roads. Temperatures warmed up a fraction now to 17 degrees Celsius, which is fairly cool. But not too much to worry these riders. Many of them starting off early on with long jerseys on there. There's the flag of South Africa flying high. I know this is being watched in South Africa. Many people probably wondering about Daryl Impey, who was a rider who was initially selected to be part of the Tour. Oh, again, sorry, a little bit of delay there. And somebody's fallen off to the... In fact, I think that... Oh, dear. This looks to me as if somebody's had an accident with one of the camera bikes who was trying to get past it. It's very difficult for the still cameramen to do their work in a day like this, because they have to take photographs at the side of the road and then try and accelerate and get by the main field and go up towards the front and do their job once again. And it's a very difficult relationship, especially on a day like today when it's very stressful riding in the main field. Nelson Oliveira, champion of Portugal from Lampre, riding towards the front. The rider who went down there was number 117. There was the Argentinian rider on Team Lampre. That was Ariel Riquezi. I think there was an accident, just a little contact between the photographer's bike and him as they were trying to move around the outside.
Yeah, Riquezi was second to last yesterday on the stage. He got dropped. He lost quite a lot of time, in fact, and but he is a good sprinter, and it is his first Tour de France. And here's our man now advertising the new vests that riders have been given to carry the bottles. They're sticking them down the jerseys and up their sleeves and legs of the racing shorts. And he rushes back to seek his team leaders.
Well, that was Michael Morkov. You might remember him from previous tours. He's actually a very good track rider, part of the Danish team for the Team Pursuit at the Olympic Games in London. But he raced in the Tour de France a couple of years ago in 2012, and he was in the break on almost every stage over the first 5 days of the race. A very aggressive bike rider and can turn a fine turn of speed.
Very strong man in his second tour, I think, at the moment. 2 minutes 30 seconds is the gap as we more undulations. All weakeners, these climbs, you know, as they come over the top of these small undulations. There's plenty of them today. They're not all categorized. There are, in fact, 9 climbs which are categorized in the King of the Mountains. But there are plenty of other ripples along the Yorkshire borders today as well. We're now in South Yorkshire, by the way. West Yorkshire, I beg your pardon, before you all write in, as we've crossed now from North Yorkshire, heading west through Keighley. And by gum, there's another lesson in the Yorkshire language for you. As here we go, 5 kilometres now. This is dropping down into Silsden, I think, as we now are heading towards the actual sprint in Keighley. And once again, everybody has turned out as we swing back here. Is this another crash or a replay of the first one? No, it's another one.
Yeah,
I can't understand why there are quite so many, Paul. You can't blame the public. They're off the road.
No, the riders are just nervous. It's a very nervous day here. Just at the back there is the leader of Team Belkin, that's Bout Mollema, and helped there by his teammate Sepp van Mark, number 68. And I think it's just nervousness on these first opening stages. Riders trying to move around the outside, taking a few risks. And as you can see, once there is an accident like that, the peloton stretches out a while before they settle down and get themselves organised for the next tactical points out on the course. It hasn't affected, once again, the front end of the main field. There's TJ Van Garderen. He's the second place rider there in the dark red and black jerseys of Team BMC Racing. And up alongside him there is Marcus Burkhardt, the rider who's been pacing him and looking after him in this early few stages. Brief reminder, there are 7 riders off the front end of the main field, and here they are. 3 riders in this leading group are first-time participants in the Tour de France. Armindo Fonseca at the back there in the white jersey. He's 25, it's his first tour. David de la Cruz in the dark blue jersey of Netap. He's from Spain. He's also 25 and riding his first Tour de France. And in the black jersey, moving forward, 29-year-old from the United States, Mathieu Boucher of Team Trek Factory Racing. So 3 riders in their first Tour de France, first participation, getting themselves into the breakaway. They're riding along here at a fairly good average speed, 50 kilometers an hour. That's 31 miles an hour. I don't think I've ever been to the Tour de France and seen quite so many barriers. Somebody must have got themselves a very good contract to produce all of those. In fact, I lifted one up the other day and they are very light. I have to think that many of them may well be aluminium because they're so light, and it's keeping the crowds away from the road, and it's keeping it nice and safe. And these accidents that are happening are really very much due to the nervousness, I think, of the riders on the opening day. Silsden welcomes Le Tour.
So as the Belkin boys get on with racing to the back of the field, Silsden welcomes Le Tour, and they're all on the roadside.
Well, everybody's really starting to get a little bit nervous. This is, I think, because we're coming down towards this next sprint point of the day, it's important. And in fact, just looking at the king of the sprints competition, Marcel Kittel and Peter Sagan are locked in exactly the same number of points with 45, because Sagan got himself a lot of points yesterday at the intermediate sprint point. As we come into Silsden, I know you like this place because this is a very important part of the Leeds-Liverpool Canal.
Yes, it is, and I've sailed through it. A couple of canals, Sir Titus Salt. Had a big part to play in the area as well, and the canal is a very pretty canal in this section.
There's Bout Mollema at the back there.
They're back.
And he had a little bit of an incident. All of these incidents, these small crashes, as we said, as the French referees like to call it, chute sans gravité, a crash without too much of a problem. Although I've always found it quite difficult. Anytime you foul, Bout Mollema has managed to get himself back into the main field. Any kind of crash really affects you from a nervous point of view. Is that Jens Voigt on the other side? Because if it is, he's got his blue trousers on now.
It's either Jens or Marcel Kittel. He's showing them the way anyway. It's our mobile arrow. 2 kilometers for the sprint. 7 guys up front, so they take the major slice of points, which doesn't really matter in all honesty because they're not in contention, or won't be by Paris, for the green jersey. I think we'll get a good sprint from behind though, because Kittel and Sagan must go head to head, I think. And it looks like that will be the case because serious face now on the yellow jersey. If you can just see him, he's concentrating. Watch for the white jersey also down centre front of our picture now, because that's Peter Sagan. and he is going to look to take the sprint here as well. As Paul Sherwin said, they're equal on points, so the man who gets in front of the other lays claim to the green jersey tonight.
Yes, there are 20 points for the first rider to cross the line. In recent years, they've changed this competition to have just one single sprint point out on the course. And at that sprint point, as I say, first 15 riders to cross that line will get points. And it's extremely important, maybe not in the first couple of days, but after 3 weeks of racing, 1 point can be the difference between winning or losing that competition, which for Peter Sagan is extremely important.
And Stuart O'Grady lost to Eric Zabel some years ago. It was literally on the last sprint of the Tour de France on the Champs-Élysées, so it can go down to the wire. Anyway, they're only a kilometre away up front here, and there they go, 7 of them. It'll be interesting to see whether they actually race for the line. I think they will, personally, as we're on the outskirts of Keighley here. And they get a prize of €1,500. What's that, about £1,200 just by winning the sprint?
Or $2,000 if you want to put it into United States currency. €1,000 for second and €500 for third. Depends on the exchange rate that you get, but that's around about $700 and $1,200 for second and third place.
Well, looking at these guys, Paul, they won't want to exchange it, will they? Euros will go down very nicely in France.
Well, I think they'll save it to spend once they get away from London on Monday night.
Yeah.
Maybe when they're on the train across, they'll be able to buy themselves some extra sandwiches as we make our way across to Belgium for the restart of the Tour de France on the continent proper.
Yes, as we head into the finish in Lille on Tuesday. Just over the borders, they're not far away from the finish of the famous French classic Paris-Roubaix. Well, they were well expecting the big crowds here, weren't they? Look at the barriers they put out on the outskirts of Keighley. This is there is the sprint, and yeah, it doesn't mean a great deal to them, so they're not going to bother with it. Blel Kadri, I think it is, gone over it in first place. No sprint there. That was to be expected. It won't be the same in about 2 minutes and 1 second.
Well, there's only 8 points for the main field once they come up here, but those 8 points could be extremely impossible. But in the past, Phil, especially going back to last year, we've seen that Marcel Kittel really doesn't get involved in these intermediate sprint points. However, one man who always goes and looks for a few points here and there is Peter Sagan, who is looking to win this green jersey points competition for the 3rd year in a row.
So they're heading off to downtown Keighley now, and here you can see the teams are lining up as if it were the stage finish itself now as they start. The boys in the lime green jerseys are looking to lead out. The man in the white jersey, Peter Sagan, tucked in nicely. Little bit of a move from Lotto Belisol coming up on the left of our picture. They're thinking of Andre Greipel. Katusha driving down the middle here, maybe for Christophe. Very good road for a sprint finish too. A nice wide main road entrance here into Keighley today. And because of the reaction from the field for the sprint, the time itself on the breakaways is coming down quite quickly.
Well, that's Alexander Kristoff and the Katusha riders on the right-hand side. It's Peter Sagan, and he's number 4 in that line of riders from Cannondale, and they really are starting to wind it up here. And in fact, it's Coquard in 4th position there in the green jersey, the Frenchman. He wants to get himself some more points.
Coquard is really impressing. It's his very first Tour de France, this youngster. He rates himself as a sprinter, and he's looking like a Mark Cavendish of old, looking at his rivals when he knows he's won. That's what Cav used to do, and Coquard gets the points.
3rd goes to Greipel, 4th goes to Peter Sagan, but it's just a question of chipping away at those points. Interesting to note, though, Phil, that the German rider, Andre Greipel, it certainly is taking a keen interest in these intermediate sprint points. You can see Greipel there coming past the white jersey of Peter Sagan. I don't think Sagan wants to really pull himself inside out to get the points there. He wants to try and win the stage down towards the end of the day, but obviously you can see Coquard, it really is looking for the points.
Oh, and a little bit of a hit on the crowd there, right on the shoulder. The public just standing a little bit too close. It's always a danger. This is what worries the cyclists. I mean, the crowd were really on the edge of the road, but the riders riding right up the crowd line. It's always a danger. There's not a lot you can do about that because neither was in the wrong, and it's a worry. But as far as the green jersey goes, well, on the road, it means Peter Sagan is now officially the leader of this race on points. And Coquard's closed a little bit, and Kittel didn't bother to contest it, so he's dropped back a little bit.
Yes, but I think at the end of the day, Peter Sagan is thinking yellow. That's what he's looking for at the end of today's stage. He wants to stay in contact with this group once they go over these final few climbs of the day, get himself a good finish on today's stage and try and get himself the yellow jersey. I think we'll see a little bit of respite, but just look at the time gap now. Just because of that acceleration going for the intermediate time sprint, we've seen that gap to the breakaway group drop to 1.5 minutes.
Well, the field regroup and the gap is down to 1:38, but it's going up again now.
Well, looking now as we start to head through Haworth, we've left Keighley behind us. This is the main field. The gap is locked in at 2 minutes to the 7-man breakaway group. Tête de la course, as they say in French, head of the race. Inside 1:58 seconds is the gap. That 7-man leading group is the same as it was that got away very early on. Kadri, De Klerk, Kemener, Matthew Boucher of the United States, Cyril Lemoine and David de la Cruz, and Armindo Fonseca making that 7-man leading group. And the artists have been out all over the Yorkshire moors here, and I think it's a pig, followed by a cow at the top there. And obviously Haworth is very well known because of the Brontes.
You and I know that's a Cheshire cat, sure.
Oh, is it? I thought it was a pig, because it's got a bit of a curly tail at the back, and because there's a bucket underneath the one on top, I think that's a cow. He's looking for some fresh milk. But I tell you what.
Yeah, as we dodge our way through the Dales here, 1:58 seconds is the gap, and everybody's enjoyed not just the day of the race, but all the preparation, the involvement of all the towns and villages of Yorkshire. They really have taken part in projects for the school kids, and I know for tomorrow, for example, as we approach the finish in Essex, the schoolmistress, the headmistress of the school, has brought the kids in at 7:30 tomorrow morning, when they should be celebrating summer holidays, to enjoy the passage of the Tour de France past the school.
Well, that really is quite magnificent for that to be able to happen. The artists have been out there. We're right very much in the heart of the Dales, which I have to say, Phil, reminds me of the expression uphill and down dale.
Well, that's where it came from.
Which is even used today in the northern parts of the United States of America, in the area around Boston and Rhode Island.
Well, as we all know, Boston's owned by the English. Don't ride Boston, it's all right. 2 minutes the gap. They're holding it again now. It's just a steady riding here. Sped themselves across the road. Nobody's up for the attack just now. We've seen them over the climb of Blubberhouses. We've seen them through Keighley. The next object on the horizon are the gentler slopes of Oxenhope Moor. And Oxenhope Moor, by the way, is 3 kilometres long, just on 2 miles. The slog over the moor, and the gradient just over 6%, so it's not a backbreaker as far as steepness is concerned, but these boys ride them at fast tempo. The biggest as far as gradient is concerned is the last climb of the day, the climb of Jenkin Road, right here where we're talking from in Sheffield, and it is very, very hard.
Now, Phil, one thing I kind of remember about Haworth is it's a very important cobblestone climb right down in the middle of town, and I wonder if we're going to go up that cobblestone climb, because that would be fun to see, and I would be very upset if we don't get a chance to see the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway.
So will
I know that's something dear to your heart.
Well, I'm sure we will. Our helicopter pilot, he can't hear our commentary, but he seems to go where we talk about, so hats off to him. He's hovering above the race, and above him, high in the sky, flying at about 10,000 feet, is an aeroplane, and that's how he managed to get all of the signals from live action around the beautiful route of the Tour de France.
Purito, or Joaquim Rodriguez as he's called, on the inside. He was looking to ride well in the Giro d'Italia, crashed out rather dramatically, breaking a number of bones. Having a chat there to the Sky rider on the far side. They'll be sharing a common language, because that's David Lopez, a man that Chris Froome will be relying a lot on when this race goes up into the mountains. But the current king of the mountains is there in the polka dot jersey, number 168. Just about see his numbers there, but they're actually red today, because he was voted yesterday as well the most aggressive rider of the stage, and I don't think anybody would contradict that. Jens Voigt.
Jens Voigt said earlier, Paul, today, that if he is retiring at the end of the year, as we know, and sadly, and people have asked him to stay riding, he says, if you give me $1 million, I'm in again for another year. But then he says, on the other hand, my inner body and my legs tell me I can't do it. and so I can't upset them, so maybe I won't.
Well, the thing about Jens is, Phil, he would not want to do one more year as a professional bike rider to participate, just to be a part of the race. He wants to race the race. He wants to be somebody who can dictate the race and go out there and give it to everybody. Yeah. And that's exactly what he did yesterday. And I bet those two young Frenchmen in that breakaway of 3 yesterday wondered what had hit them when Big Jens went out on the attack.
But he sensed they were quicker than him. The young legs were going to beat him for the sprints for the King of the Mountains. So the only way to not let them do that was to attack them and get rid of them. That's exactly what he did. And that's the experience of the man. He can teach a lot of people in this tour some great tricks. 2 minutes 7, still nudging up as we continue to climb away now out towards Oxenhope. Is this the cobbled hill you're talking about, Paul? Because we just turned left.
Well, there you are. This really is a very typical old English town with its cobblestone streets, and it really has kept a certain amount of its charm. It reminds me, I suppose as we are in England, it reminds me of a Hovis advert. You remember that brown bread from the days of old?
I do.
Still around, you know.
With the little lad and his bike.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, I do, very much so. There, and it's quite a steep little climb. This isn't part of the King of the Mountains either, but as you can see, it's a slope of 10%. But there's no prize for first over the top. And Matthew Boucher, the American here, just sitting off the back. I don't think he's in trouble. He's on the back wheel there now of Blel Kadri, the Frenchman. And just ahead of him, 174 there, Cyril Lemoine, who got a point on the last climb.
You've got to think these riders in the breakaway,
Aren't these people lucky to be living on the route of the Tour de France?
And these riders, Phil, are probably thinking that they're stuck in the middle of the Ardennes, because doesn't this resemble Liège-Bastogne-Liège when you look at a nice little cobble climb? This could be Belgium, just on the outskirts of Liège.
It could indeed. And Blel here, Blel Kadri, is being unhitched on this climb. Pacemaking being done by Cyril Lemoine, sorry, by Bart de Klerk at the front. Over the top. Where's Blel? There he is. He'll get back now as we start to go down. It's going to be interesting when the peloton come through that narrow gap. Minute 55. Little nice left turn here now as we continue to be carried along on the waves of voices of the people of Yorkshire.
I mean, you cannot cease to be amazed by the number of people who have turned out here to enjoy Le Tour en Yorkshire, as they're saying in French, the Tour de France in Yorkshire. There's a little sign there for Chris Froome. He won't be too far away from the front end of this pack, but look at all those fluorescent yellow jerseys. You can't miss Alberto Contador and his merry men, can you?
No, that's his team, Tinkoff Saxo, and Contador will love the next few seconds of the race as he goes up the cobbled hill here because he's a brilliant climber. Peloton.
Nice story there as well, Phil, by the way, because talking about cobblestones, Alberto Contador and his team, just before the start of the Tour de France in Harrogate, they were over in the northern part of France and they rode the cobblestone sections before they flew to the start in Leeds. And they were brought here, of course, by Mr. Oleg Tinkoff himself in his private jet, just to get them to the start of the Tour de France on time.
Such is the business life of a star. Now the Pavé de Harworth, much nicer than the cobblestones of Harworth, I think. As they're just concentrating as they come up the climb here. Nobody really being put into trouble because the peloton is not in angry mood just at the moment. A lovely little town now of Harworth, which takes us here up to 125 kilometres still to ride.
If I'm not mistaken, that was a brief glimpse there of the Church of St. Michael, and that is in the graveyard there is where the Bronte sisters are buried. And that, in fact, one of the Brontes was not buried there. That was Anne, but the rest of the family are buried in the cemetery there, not too far away from the race route. That's just to bring a little bit of literary content to our Tour de France coverage this afternoon.
Well, we're showing 1:46. The race is telling us it's now 2 minutes overall. The gap between 7 front runners and the main peloton. We're getting no reports of anybody being left behind on the peloton yet. It might be a different story later on as we now plunge down a little bit and head towards Oxenhope, which will take us out onto the moor and a climb which is just on 2 miles long. Might see some cracks in the peloton on that climb. It depends how they attack it because it's quite a tough day still after Oxenhope Moor. Picking up a slight tailwind, but the wind is not so troublesome. It was a lot harder yesterday.
Oh, just having a look here, Phil, you can see that the pressure is being applied a little bit at the front end of the main field. There's a long line of riders tailing out of the back of that gaggle of riders at the front end of the main field. That's just because of the pressure of the rolling nature of the dales we're getting into right now.
Yes, well, the cobblestones aren't everybody's cup of tea, tea being the operative word in Yorkshire. As stand by for a left-hand turn here. So as we wave goodbye again to the villages for the moment, we're heading out now to Oxenhope Moor. We are struggling here on the slopes of Oxenhope Moor, up between a massive crowd as the riders come up here. The gap is just on 2 minutes. This is the peloton. They're going to meet the same public in about 2 minutes' time as they continue to climb. Massive, massive crowd, and nobody moving from that front group at the moment at all. The peloton are just continuing to ride along in disbelief at the number of people who have come to watch the Tour de France in Yorkshire.
But look how attentive some of the big contenders are. Just in the middle, you might have noticed there as we go through 3.1 kilometres to go. This is the start of the climb proper. Over the top, it's 116 kilometres to go, an average gradient of just about 6.5%. At the top, it's 1,400 feet, or 400 metres in altitude.
It's only third category, only the first two get points.
But I did notice towards the front of the peloton, Alberto Contador was there, and not too far from him on the other side of the road was the American I was just telling you about, Andrew Talansky, 10th overall last year, but probably more importantly, the winner this year of the Criterium de Dauphiné. There's an American in the breakaway as well there, just sitting at the back is the rider from the Trek Factory Racing, and that's Matthew Boucher. He's a very good climber in his own right. We've gone over the first climb of the day. The first sprint point and only sprint point of the day at Keighley. Now we're on the climb of Oxenhope Moor, or the Côte de Oxenhope, as they say in French. The seven-man leading group looking still at a 2.25 minute advantage. The wind is starting to ruffle the trees a little bit. It was amazing driving into Sheffield this morning because people were out in their neighbourhoods putting up yellow flowers, yellow bunting to celebrate the arrival of Le Tour in Yorkshire. Welcome to Yorkshire 2014. The pace is picking up a fraction. We're still not yet through half distance in this race here this afternoon as we continue to head right into the heart of the Dales. Oxenhope Moor over the top, and then it's uphill and down Dale as we start to head down towards Greater Manchester. Once we get down to there, we'll go through Huddersfield and to the top of Home Moss. The crowds, just listen to this. Still massive crowds turning out on the second stage of the Tour de France and the seven-man leading group.
We've got the flag of Russia, the flag of Brittany. They're all here.
Flag of Wales just over to the left-hand side.
Jamaica. We've
yes.
got no Jamaican riders in the race. Malaysia. I think that was a Malaysian flag, wasn't it?
They're all here. 6% is the percentage at the moment. 2.5 minutes the advantage. 118 kilometres to go, around about 70 miles, and 3.1 kilometres to go to the summit. Purito Rodriguez, Phil, he does not look like a man who is enjoying his day today. I thought maybe he was hiding his game a little bit yesterday, thinking about today's stage, but after that nasty accident he had in the Giro d'Italia, I think he's still trying to ride himself in. This is the small village here of Heppenstall, a very attractive little village. In fact, a very important battle took place here during the Civil War of 1643.
A different battle now, much more friendly one, but even so, there's probably a lot more spectators here than there were in 1643.
Well, interestingly enough, the American poet and novelist Sylvia Plath, who died in 1963, is actually buried here, and she was posthumously awarded the Pulitzer Prize, and obviously loved this area of Yorkshire.
Pulitzer Prize. Well, we're watching the peloton now. Andre Greipel in that white jersey slipped back a little bit. This is the breakaway. Well, I did say earlier in commentary that this is a long, horrible climb. When I organised the British Milk Race some years ago, it was a first category climb, but of course there's much steeper climbs in the Tour de France. Now there's only 2 prizes available at the top, 1 point and 2 points, or 2 point and 1 point for the first 2 riders over. We're saving the big points for the outside category mountains of the Pyrenees and the Alps. Seems strange to talk about mountains so far away from where these riders are right now.
Well, Cyril Lemoine got himself the most points over the first climb of the day, just a single point at the top of Blubberhouses. The man who leads that competition, 42 years of age, Jens Voigt, he doesn't seem to have taken too much of an interest so far in today's racing because there's a 7-man leading group across. There's only 2 points and 1 available over the top of Oxenhope Moor, and I wonder if Cyril Lemoine will try to build himself a little lead in that competition.
Well, the situation at the moment in the King of the Mountains, we've had a 1-point victory today for Cyril Lemoine. Jens Voigt has got 4 after his efforts yesterday, and then the rest are just lining up behind him with 1 point.
Well, there's 5 points available once we get to the summit of Home Moss, and that could be the turning point in this competition. 9 categorised climbs on the race route today. Yes, they're all small ones at 4th and 3rd, but there's that single second category climb at Home Moss could make the difference for somebody.
If these guys stay away for another hour or so, they could sweep up enough, one of them could sweep up enough points to pull on the next polka dot jersey. And obviously the man that seems to be looking for it, because he's making all of the obvious moves, is the ride at the back at the moment, 174 there, is Cyril Lemoine. The peloton aren't interested, they're just interested in riding as one here, but I don't know if you saw it, but we noticed right at the back, number 21, slipping off the back of the field, and that is Joaquim Rodriguez, who had this bad crash on the 6th day of the Giro d'Italia this year, and he would normally be a candidate to be a podium finisher in this race. So, as far as I know, no, there he is. He's just tagging on again. He's holding on to the tail of that peloton. You know, I begin to think that our cameras are hearing us because we've gone and seen Rodriguez at the back now.
May well be that they're earwigging into the conversation here this afternoon. A kilometre to go to the summit. A little move coming here from Europcar. Now that is a fine move to try and catch everybody by surprise. Peric Kemeneur.
Well, Kemeneur has really upset the movement here because Lemoine is the first red jersey in the group here, and he wanted the points. He better get his... but he's not going to bother to chase. I think the move has hit him at the right time. So this is Kemeneur, who's going to get himself 2 points.
It's a good Breton name there. He caught them by surprise with this attack from last position. That group of 7. Boucher there thought about going with the move and said, no, it's much more comfortable here. I'll leave it up to somebody else to chase. As you can see, Kemeneur has got himself a good advantage. But Lemoine needs to try and come across the line in 2nd place if he wants to keep chipping away at the top of that competition. But this man caught them by surprise. I expect him to get maximum points over the top here. He's a long way down in the standings, 149th, but he's in the same time as everybody else because yesterday was a bunch sprint with most of the riders in the race yesterday given the same time as the winner, Marcel Kittel.
151st in his first Tour de France last year, but he got to the finish in Paris. That's what really matters. He's still a very young man. He rides for the Europcar team, and now in his 2nd tour, he's decided he understands this racing now, and he's got himself settled in. He read the move well this morning. In fact, he was the first rider to launch an attack. There were 2 of them got clear initially, and the gap is still going up here. So, wouldn't it be great for a Frenchman to pull on the leader's jersey, and especially a man from Brittany, which is the hotbed of French cycling? But it won't happen yet. He's just about to start climbing the ladder with 2 points on this climb.
Well, certainly is, because his brother Jan Kemeneur was also a very good cyclist, as was his father Yves. And in fact, he rode his first Grand Tour back in 2010 when he rode the Vuelta a España. But for him, more importantly here, and for Team Europcar, the possibility of getting a leader's jersey. And those leader's jerseys in the first week of the race can be extremely important. The crowd, Phil, here are so enthusiastic. It doesn't matter where the rider's from. It doesn't matter what team is from. They just want to enjoy the spectacle.
They're cheering the Tour de France. That's what they're doing. And there it is. 2 points for him. So he started in the ascendancy now in the Roi de la Montagne. and then I think from the peloton nothing, and there is a spin for second place, but I would go for number 174 Lemoine. He started and he's got it on the line, so Cyril Lemoine has got the 1 point available.
So that's keeping it nice and close at the top of the King of the Mountains competition, but still Jens Voigt at 42 years of age is the leader on the road, but there's a lot of climbing to go. Peloton not panicking currently. There's confirmation over the summit of the climb. Kemener getting himself the 2 points. Cyril Lemoine of France, and Cofidis getting himself a single point. That brings his tally up to 2. Lemoine, 31 years of age, riding his 4th Tour de France. He's seen all of this before. His best position in the Tour was 112th back in 2013. Best place was 3rd on stage 3 in 2009. He knows how to ride something like the Tour de France, and he'll be thinking, but it's a long way now, Phil, to the next climb, because all the way down to Ripponden, we've got about 30 kilometers to go before we actually get there.
All these scantily clad men down there. It must be getting warmer than we think out on the moors, because the riders coming up through the middle here. There's no reason that man should move off the road. Well done. The English flag flying there, the Yorkshire flag flying, the French flag. Concentration on the faces. They all hold tempo at the front here. Nobody interested yet in pushing home any advantage. Too far to go to the finish. 115 miles. The flag's indicating a crosswind whipping across the tops here as we continue to move on. After the climb of Oxenhope Moor, another well-known area of Yorkshire, Ripponden is where we're bound for now, on this veritable tour of Yorkshire. And we're hearing from the race, although we haven't seen it, the breakaway. Kemener has now been picked up by the other 6. That's to be expected. He's not going to try and ride away like Jens Voigt yesterday. So there's 7 at the front.
Yeah, I think logically those riders will try and stay together for as long as possible. They do realise now we're coming into the area where there's a big repetitive nature of all of those climbs. I noticed Vincenzo Nibali's riding very much to the front. Interesting jersey that he's got. When you're the national champion, you can wear the flag of your country. You can spot at the back there the white jersey with the German flag. Well, that's a fairly standard kind of national champion's jersey that is being worn there by Andre Greipel. The 2nd time that he's won that national title. But the turquoise jersey with the Italian flag around the middle is what has been adopted by the newly crowned Italian champion, Vincenzo Nibali. Meilleur grimpeur. Again, let's carry on with our French lessons as we did yesterday. That means the best climber. The best climber is the competition inside of the race for the rider who goes over the categorized climbs out on the course in the best position. Points from 4th category with only a single point to outside categorized climbs for the big mountains once we get into the Alps and the Pyrenees. Well, the gap stretched out again, and I think that's because these riders know that once they accelerate, they pull back that leading group quite smartly. We saw it pull back at the sprint point at Keighley down to 1.5 minutes. Now I think the main field have begun to relax a fraction. There's looking back over the Dales, as you can see in the background. This is again a magnificent day. It was forecast to be rainy and showers for the latter part of the afternoon, but hopefully I think the weather forecasters may well have got it wrong on this occasion, and it looks like the Tour in Yorkshire will be blessed with a sunny day and a sunny finale as well. Sitting on the back here, this is the rider from the Bretagne team who got himself into this break, Armindo Fonseca. Sounds a very much a Portuguese name, but he is from France. And the police have got their vehicles up towards the top here. The police have done a fabulous job here, working alongside the French Garde Républicaine. They have kept this race nice and safe so far as they've made their way through this circumnavigation of the counties of Yorkshire. So this little bit of a crosswind, this could be a very precarious moment too here, because here now as we start to go over these moorlands, it really is very difficult. There's no protection from the wind, and if somebody was to turn up the gas right now, we could see this bunch split up very quickly. But I think there are enough of the overall contenders sitting close up to the front that they're not likely to adopt that tactic. Still, with 112 kilometers to go to the finish, we're still hovering on 70 miles to go.
108 kilometres are still to ride. 3 minutes 12 seconds is the gap. They're not chasing these riders, but they're keeping them well under control. Some tricky descending now as we race down towards Ripponden, where we climb out.
Yes, Ripponden, I think, is going to be rather a difficult climb for these riders. They must have sore ears at the end of the day, Phil, because they have. I don't think there's been
a nasty case of tinnitus today.
Any part of the course today where there's not been more than a few spectators. Everybody turning out today. Yeah, I know it's Sunday, but what a great way to spend Sunday. A picnic here. It may well be. People have always said to me, "What's the point of going to see the Tour de France? It's all gone past in the flash of an eye." But the spectacle is something that lasts for a couple of hours. You get there early before the riders come through. You've got the pre-race publicity caravan. You've got the excitement of all the media cars starting to come through. Then the race breakaway comes through, the race convoy. It's a day out, really. It's
a day out, and in Yorkshire's case, it's been a happy journey of lasting months, as all of the towns have had projects for the school children that involved everybody to make it an occasion, and that's what it's turning out to be. 107 kilometres to go. This is the way that the race normally goes, the bike races. They only climb this road they're descending because it starts climbing away from Hebden Bridge. We're descending now in to Hebden Bridge. This is St. Thomas's Church. Paul Sherwin now is looking you're looking confused, Paul, just because there's no flag on top.
No, I know this is the Church of St. Thomas. In fact, it's a fairly new church when you look down at it. It's a church that was built in 1912 alongside an older church which was built on the same area.
There's now that
church
there's the old. That's the one we were waiting for.
That is the one you wanted, because that is the Church of Sir Thomas à Becket, founded in 1260. Modified over the years, it was damaged by a serious storm in the area in 1847. It lies there now in ruins. But as you can see, at least they built a new one next to it.
Well done. And look at the buntings, even off the route to the right of our picture there as well. We're into Heptonstall now, which is a very attractive village in the best, and it was the site of a major battle during the first part of the Civil War back in the 17th century. It's been a former textile centre as well. As we continue now on our way on the veritable Tour of Yorkshire with these riders. 3 minutes 08, that's the gap. It's a good gap still, and now there are riders in this breakaway. If they can continue to chip away on these small climbs, they could be fighting out for a polka dot jersey very shortly.
Yes, that's what they're thinking about on today's stage. The next climb for them will be Ripponden Bank, as it's known locally, as that they make their way to the next climb after that, Greekland, which is also two climbs that put very, very close together. They're only separated by around about 8 kilometres or 5 miles. This is the feeding station. It's always a great place for the spectators to come, because once the riders have taken on board their bags with the food and extra bottles in there, they'll cast those off, and the spectators get a very good chance at a free souvenir. It's also a very dangerous Japanese flag over to the right-hand side as well. It's good to see. And they will be supporting the rider who is on Team Europe car, the Japanese rider Yukiya Arashiro, who is no stranger to the Tour de France. 7-man leading group now, coming back inside of the 3-minute margin. The gap over the top of Oxenhope Moor was 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Really is the dark satanic mills we're starting to make our way down into here. 105 kilometres, not far away now from the halfway point of this race. There is the peloton. Behind them, the convoy of cars making their way through historic Yorkshire this afternoon.
We're just seeing on the left there, Paul, the Rochdale Canal. It's 51 kilometres long. When I used to own a narrowboat, I sailed this area, but that canal was closed. It was a major renovation situation, and it needed money, and it was volunteers who raised the money, and finally it was reopened in 2002, and it's linked to Yorkshire and Lancashire.
Yeah, the amazing thing was when you talk about things like the canals, they were put in the late 1700s. In fact, in 1776 they studied the course to put this canal between Sowerby Bridge and Manchester. It was completed in 1794. The reason was they wanted to move the cotton around for which Yorkshire and Lancashire are known.
And they would have all disappeared but for the World Wars. They started to sail all the bombs and the armament down in the dark in canal boats to get them to the aeroplanes. So there you go. And now, of course, thanks to the Waterway Recovery Group, they managed to finally get a protection on our canals. And you know, there are more canals in Birmingham than there are in Venice. Did you know that?
I did not know that. No, well, I'm glad that you were.
Not
only are you a railway buff, you're a canal buff as well.
I used to roam on those wonderful narrowboats. Lovely people live on canals, but today the lovely people are standing on the streets of Yorkshire watching the Tour de France. Again, 2 minutes 33 is the gap. It's come back a little bit. The face of Bart de Klerk here, the Belgian rider, and Lotto Belisol. The farmers, the artisans have been working away. I'm sure there's a number of riders in the race they wish that really was the finish line right now, because we still have 7 climbs to come.
Well, amazing. We've got the white rose of Yorkshire, the red rose of Lancashire, and the yellow rose of the Tour de France there right before us.
Neutral territory, this, as the peloton speed through now. They're picking up food down there, I think.
Yes, there you can see just the yellow flag across the road. That is the fin de ravitaillement, or the end of the feeding station. Great to be able to commentate on the Tour de France, because not only can we see the beauty of the countryside, we can get a French lesson as well. Taking on board those small bags, they're called musettes, the small feeding bags that the riders take on board. With 201 there is Leopold Koenig, the rider who just a few moments ago had a little bit of a problem at the back end of the pack, but didn't seem to panic as he rode himself back into the race.
Huge moments for Netap Endura, because this is their first crack at the Tour de France. They finally got a wild card selection. Not one of the 9 riders have been in the Tour de France when they're representing other teams. Huge moments for them. There's a little souvenir for that young lady, I think it was, on the exit, and that's another example of how the riders have been told not to throw these bags away where there's nobody to pick them up, which is great. It's all part of the environmental protection. Now, this is what also, it looks like it might be a puncture. No, I don't think it was. This was a fall in the feeding zone. Always a dangerous moment.
Yeah, that's Janier Acevedo, the Colombian rider on Team Garmin Sharp, just over to the right-hand side. The other rider who went down quite heavily there was Koen de Kort. We talked about him a little bit earlier on. He's one of the important riders on Giant Shimano to look after Marcel Kittel. Yeah. Zone de collecte, you might just have noticed that. Zone de collecte is the area where the riders are allowed to throw away anything that they need to discard during the race that they've picked up during the feeding station, because after the race has gone through, the tour organisation has a cleaning group going through there to pick up anything that might be left behind. Because after all, when you're racing up some of these mountains, you don't want to be carrying half a kilo of rubbish with you.
I think Acevedo took it to heart. He threw his bicycle wheel in there as well, because he had a flat tyre in that crash. Anyway, the race goes on. No pressure. They're not really pulling away. Koen de Kort, who is... he actually lives a lot of time in Australia with his girlfriend, who is Australian, and so he knows a lot of the riders in the Tour de France here. Speaks very good English, but all Dutchmen do. And Koen is a strong man on the shoulder of Marcel Kittel. Allez, allez, allez. You see, even the Yorkshire people understand French now.
I think everybody's been taking French lessons here this afternoon. 2:15 now, as we can start to see the leaders hoping they can survive a little bit longer, not too far away from Ripponden, and they will hope to survive there, because there's only 8 kilometers between the climb of Ripponden and, of course, Rietland, and that gives the riders another chance to get some points in the King of the Mountains classification. Peloton not yet racing in earnest. They're enjoying the day out, but the Tour de France is all a question of elimination. There you can just see the face of the rider in the black jersey there. That's Andy Schleck. He was winner in the Tour de France back in 2010. That's Sergio Paulinho on the front, a silver medalist in the... oh, another problem at the back. Lots of these little problems happening, I think, as riders are getting nervous. That was Christian Durasek, the Croatian rider on Team Lamprey. So he's quickly up and riding again. Again, another little bit of an incident at the back here. The Croatian rider on Team Lampe, Durasek, wearing 113. But again, there is no serious charge at the front end of the main field. Langeveld in the red, white and blue on the left-hand side. Sven Tuft, Team Garmin Sharp. Well, he's Orica Green Edge, but it's Team Garmin Sharp and Andrew Talansky on the left-hand side. Talansky sitting there in second place. He's riding an unknown tour for him this year. He finished 10th overall last year, but this year he's a rider a lot of people are putting a bit of pressure onto his shoulders as they believe that he's got a good chance of not only finishing in the top 10, but maybe even top 5, and why not a podium. Bouk Mollema was at the back here. And everywhere we go, it appears that everyone wants to decorate their houses, their churches, their villages in yellow. So we left Hebden Bridge behind us now. We're now starting to continue this march down towards the south. Hebden Bridge, the riders heading now through Crag Vale up towards Ripponden. Ripponden Bank is the next climb on the day. Two climbs are pretty much bolted together. The most aggressive man of yesterday. That's why he has a red number on his back, number 168, Jens Voigt. Oldest man in the race at 42 years of age. Been a professional since 1997. Everyone bunched together. I can just see the national champion of Australian jersey up at the front there, Simon Gerrans. He was involved in that nasty little crash at the finish yesterday with Mark Cavendish, two of them going down very, very heavily. At the back of the group, 186 is Jens Kukkeler. He's a Belgian rider on Orica Green Edge. Now, Simon Gerrans, if he's looked at this finish today, must be feeling that if he can get that pain out of his body, he's got a very good chance. It's an ideal Simon Gerrans type finish today, very much like Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the race that he won in April, one of the most famous one-day classics. The longest, the oldest classic on the calendar, first organised back in 1896. Gerrans won that this year with a well-timed sprint. The climb on the finishing line here is certainly the sort of climb that suits Simon Gerrans, and I'm sure he'll be hoping that he'll recover from that accident of yesterday. Fingers crossed for him. Sergio Paulinho in the middle there for Tinkoff Saxo, the lime green jerseys of Cannondale. Moving up the outside there, David Lopez of Team Sky. They're all the riders, all the contenders trying to keep themselves as close to the front end of the main field as they can. Thomas Vogler, 159. Well, he's thinking very much about trying to do what he can a little bit later on. Yes, I don't think you can run very far. Don't forget, sir, that these riders have already done 100 kilometres before you do 10 kilometres alongside them, so give them a little bit of respect, please. 102 kilometres to go to the finish. We're not too far away from half distance. This is Bart de Klerk on the front. De Klerk, teammate of Andre Greipel, been given a bit of freedom here this afternoon. I would think because a lot of people, a lot of the sprinters are a little bit concerned. So far this year, de Klerk started his season off riding in the Grand Prix Marseillaise. He's ridden most of the early season races like the Étoile de Bessèges and the Tour of Andalusia. He was 7th in the team time trial in the Tirreno Adriatico. He doesn't have too much to shout home about, but he is a rider who's extremely well respected amongst his squad, and that's why they've allowed him, I think, to get into the breakaway today. Last year, he finished 8th in the Belgian Time Trial Championships. But you can see now there's no real chase happening in the peloton behind, but that gap is starting to come down. It's inside of 2 minutes. That's just because of the pressure of the race. So the main field are riding at a consistent tempo all of the time, while these guys, I think they're starting to weaken a fraction just because of the profile of today's stage is very, very difficult. There's not one flat part of the course on today's route. Uphill and down dale, I suppose, would be the correct terminology, and that's certainly where we are, right in the heart of the dales. Crag Vale for the main field, maximum speed 40 miles an hour. Well, they won't be doing that going uphill, but they certainly will be exceeding that on the downward part of the course. The bunting there rippling nicely in the wind, and that's an indication that I have a feeling that once we get to the top of Home Moss, it's going to be very, very grippy indeed. That crosswind could be rather important now. You can see the wind is starting to pick up as we look at the back end of the field. Number 144 is the French rider on Team BMC. That's Armel Moinard. There we go, 100 kilometers to go. We're at half distance in today's stage, about 2.5 hours to go to the finish.
2 minutes 16 seconds the gap, 97 kilometers. We're seeing the line of Flanders from Belgium flag flying. They're all here. They've just transferred themselves across, and no doubt they'll be following us back into France tomorrow night as everybody heads back and takes the race back to its own soil. But right now we are still watching plenty of action here. Now what's going on here? A change of shoes? I think it is.
Well, there's a little adjustment. Probably got a new pair of shoes before the start of the tour.
Well, he's got another one
and
now.
That's impressive, the fact that he had a spare pair of shoes in the team car. Now, most of these riders in the team car behind them will have what they call a wet weather bag, and in the wet weather bag they carry a spare jersey, a spare shirt, a wet weather cover, but not very often do they make sure to carry a spare pair of shoes.
Well, that was incredible. But here we continue on now.
Look at the crowd. This is crazy. This is unbelievable.
It's wonderful. We're just tickling Greater Manchester at the moment as we go down towards West Yorkshire. Ripponden is in West Yorkshire. I look at this now. That Bart de Klerk is not waving to the crowd. He's actually put his hand up to call for his team car. He's got a, maybe he wants a drink or something. He doesn't have a problem. Doesn't appear to have a problem. Anyway, this is an area which is well known to the people here. This is one that was well picked out. There's that flag for Yates as the peloton that comes through. It's Simon Yates, who is the second youngest rider, just 21 years of age, riding for the Australian Orica Green Edge team, and they're still confident, that team, that Simon Gerrans will be their man for the stage today, even though he really got knocked around in that sprint with Mark Cavendish yesterday.
Well, talking with Simon Gerrans just before the start, he seemed pretty confident this morning and felt that if he could just ride through the first couple of hours of this stage, and it's been a reasonably easy early part of the stage, his muscles would warm up, and very often the day after the crash is not the worst day, and maybe those flags fill over to the right-hand side there for Simon Gerrans this afternoon. Let's not forget, he's the Australian national champion, the winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and Simon Gerrans in 100% of his form. This would be an ideal finish for Simon Gerrans today, with that climb towards the finish and a good sprint to finish it off. Yeah,
absolutely perfect. Either way, I think we're going to see a handful of riders come to the finishing line today, or maybe even somebody on his own. Concerned faces of the peloton, who, despite the fact they've been going for just on 2 hours or so, they still haven't really got their teeth into this course yet, because the hard section very much in front of them.
I think everybody is biding their time until we get to the climb of Home Moss. Home Moss is a difficult climb in itself, but the problem is once you get over the top of Home Moss, it really is barren. As we can see here over this moorland landscape, there is no protection from the wind. The wind will be buffeting the riders. It will cut the peloton to pieces, and then it's a rapid descent down into the valley and over Woodhead Pass. And Woodhead Pass itself, although not even a categorized climb in the Tour de France here, is a long false flat wall, which will make it difficult for riders dropped on Home Moss to get back into contact with the front of the race.
Well, we're just about as remote as you'll get in England at the moment, and just look at the people down there as the riders swing away from the reservoir now.
Yeah, that's Blackstone Edge Reservoir. In fact, we're not too far away, if I do remember, we're not too far away from Oldham and the northern part of Greater Manchester. Yeah. We really are going through the training grounds from many of the riders from the northwest of England who dominated professional and amateur cycling in the 60s and 70s in the United Kingdom.
Well, we're only actually in the Greater Manchester area for about 3 miles before we start to move back into West Yorkshire, and then we will go into Derbyshire before we finally find ourselves at the finish in South Yorkshire. Now, here's another little exercise going on at the back with Yukiya Arishiro, the Japanese rider on the Europe car team, We also have our first Chinese rider ever in the Tour de France this year. We haven't seen him yet, Ji Cheng. He had a rough ride yesterday. He finished. He lost a couple of minutes on the run-in to Harrogate, but let's hope he does have a great tour as well.
Somebody was mentioning on one of the Twitter sites a little bit earlier on about all of the flags that he's seen around the Tour de France. Well, I saw a little bit earlier on the Japanese flag, and they're obviously out to support this man, Yarashiro. Yeah. He's been to the Tour de France before. He's a very competitive professional biker. He used to be the Japanese national champion. Today, job of work in hand for him, picking up bottles to take them down through the convoy of cars, and he's probably looking after Thomas Voeckler.
Yes, actually, it's his 5th Tour de France. First one was in 2009. That was significant. That was when the Grand Départ was last in England, down in London. And he's ridden the Tour. This, I say, is his 5th, but he's finished all 4 tours. He's a very, very reliable bike rider on the Europcar team. Now, what is this? Is this Demar?
Demar, yeah, he's got a problem. Foot out. It looks as if it's a flat back tyre. He's controlling his bike, waiting for the team car. Yeah.
It's a front wheel,
yeah. Just to prove me wrong.
Well, that'll be a quick change for the front wheel. The new champion of France, now he's got his crack at the Tour de France. Big for a Frenchman.
And it's a lot more difficult nowadays to change the wheels, because in the old days they were allowed to file off the ends where the wheels go into for racing, to get the wheels in and out a lot more quickly. But because of new health and safety measures, they have to have a little lip, so the mechanic can't set the wheel properly to flip it in and switch across the quick release. So he's up to wind it up before he can do that. As we see the Bettings Reservoir there, which is located in the Ribon Valley, built in between 1948 and 1956, 64 hectares, about 1,500 feet wide is the dam, 180 feet high, and it supplies the town of Wakefield, lad.
Wakefield, lad. This is where the water comes from, to Wakefield. The race doesn't go into Wakefield, but the water does, as the riders race past it here. 2 minutes 18 seconds. I Am Cycling, that's a Swiss setup. They got the wild card entry as well into the Tour de France. There's 22 teams in the Tour de France.
Fabian Cancellara riding at the front end of the pole. In those dark glasses, the BMC rider just behind him was the American TJ Van Garderen. He's riding on a spare machine. He had a little bit of a mechanical incident in the early part of this race. We've knocked off 10 kilometres quite rapidly there, and still that gap is locked in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. It's very stable.
They're just holding it. They're not chasing them. They're going to allow the terrain, the topography of the course to cause those riders to slow down, I think. But a very, very quick descent here as we race back into West Yorkshire now. Next stop, Ripponden, and the next climb of the day. Just about, once we're through here, we are going to start the climb up to the top of the Côte de Ripponden. Well, this has been a picture postcard of the beautiful county of Yorkshire, hasn't it? As we've seen so many of the villages over yesterday and today. 1.3 kilometres to the top of the climb of Ripponden, so they're back in the saddle. Now this again, it's a 3rd category climb, so there are 2 points for the winner, and we're not waiting, because that is David de la Cruz who's launched the attack.
Well, he's been caught out the last couple of times, and he realises now that we've got 2 3rd category climbs separated by only 8 kilometres on the course, so that's a good chance to get himself some serious points. Those are the climbs we've done so far in the back. This is the 3rd climb of the day, and it's hurting Kemeneur at the back there.
Yes, he was the man that shot away on Oxenhope Moor, but he wasn't expecting a resurgence. We've gone back to the rear of the peloton here. This is Arnaud Demar, who's coming back after his front wheel change. He's got a nice, long, very quick descent to get in. You can see he's a born sprinter. Look at the size of him. He's going to have trouble when he gets onto the climb. As they start the climb, the gap is 2 minutes and 13 seconds. There's Rodriguez again. I don't like the look of this. He's shaking his head, I'm wondering, Paul.
Well, it's a tough start to the Tour, Phil. It's not an easy couple of flat days to allow the body to get used to the punishment. For him, it's straight into the action, especially if you're coming back from injury. Demar, though, got very smartly back into the peloton there. He's had a great season. One of the new French sprinters on the block. He's won 10 races so far this year, and he's only 22 years of age, too. So, it didn't last for David de la Cruz in that black jersey of Team NetApp. They're all back together. And in fact, I would think of Peric Kemeneur at the back there in the green jersey. He'd be quite happy with that. A little bit of respite after the acceleration going clear there. Blail Kadri, he's riding his 4th Tour de France. He's 27 years of age. He's in the brown shorts, just sitting at the back there. Best place in the Tour de France was in 2012 when he finished in 89th place overall. Boucher, the American rider, wears number 29. There he is. I wondered where he'd gone for a moment there in the black jersey of Team Trek Factory Racing. Professional since 2010, raced for Radio Shack, back with the peloton. That's Johan van Summeren over on the left-hand side, dancing on those pedals, out of the front, out of the saddle, fighting like that. Now we're heading up to the top, the Fleece sign on the left-hand side. This is the 7-man leading group. That gap has really never been given much freedom there. Half a kilometre now away from the top of the climb at Ripponden. And there again, the accelerated Boucher. He dropped off the back a fraction there just a few moments ago. He's taken up the chase by Cyril Lemoine in the red jersey. He was hoping to catch him by surprise here. And Lemoine is right onto the wheel now of Boucher. Just behind him is De La Cruz.
Well, this is an amazing attack. They're trying to fight amongst themselves here. Everybody wants the prizes on the climb. This is only a third of 9 climbs today. As we're heading towards the top of Ripponden, it is the USA man on the front, Boucher. Chasing him down, Lemoine has had to go now. He wants to try and get the leader's jersey off the shoulders of Jens Voigt.
Well, it looks through the crowd there. Well, they were jumping right the way to the top there, and I think Lemoine got that just ahead of David de la Cruz of NetApp. It gives you a sign of just how important these riders are taking these few points that are available at the top of these early climbs in the Tour de France. Let's get a look there, common confirmation there. Lemoine getting himself 2 points, de la Cruz at 1 point. Now that is pulling Lemoine up to exactly the same number of points as Jens Voigt.
Now Voigt's got 4 and Lemoine's got 3 at the moment. So he should be okay. Oh, he gets 2 for the top of that one, does he?
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. You're right, Paul. He's equal. So well done to Lemoine, but he will probably win the lead, have the right to earn the leader's jersey because he's the most recent winner of the climb. So we'll see. But he's still got a chance anyway. In about 5 more kilometres, he's going to be on the climb of Greetland now.
Yeah, well, in about 8 kilometres' time, there are more points available for Cyril Lemoine. Now, that might look like a Sunday afternoon bike ride to you, but I can tell you if we saw the back end of the main field and the faces of some of the riders at the back end, it really is beginning to hurt now. The road is narrowing because of this immense crowd over the top of the climb here as we come up towards the top of Ripponden Bank. And at the back end of this field, a lot of riders are in difficulty. We're looking at speeds here of about 20 miles an hour. There's obviously somebody a little bit upset by the fact that the road is getting very, very narrow. Come on, guys, please give the riders a safe ride through Yorkshire.
And backing through a very narrow road here. It could be a little bit wider, that's for sure, as we're now seeing Movistar here. Alejandro Valverde starting to penetrate. Interesting moves here. They're sensing now that the race for the day is starting here because the hills are beginning to come thick and fast. We're only about another 3 miles or so, and we're on the climb of Greetland, which is another 3rd category climb, and that's a 6.7%, a slightly less gradient than this one. But as they go over the summit, the gap is still 2 minutes 5 seconds.
Well, as you might have spotted there, as I said, riders at the back of this peloton are in difficulty. There you can see Arnaud Demar in the red, white and blue, the French national champion. He had a flat tyre, he got himself back into the main field, but then all of a sudden, bang, they threw Ripponton Bank in front of him. He's now trying to stay in contact. He's struggling to ride over the top of this climb. He's got a teammate up alongside him to pace him back to the main field. That is Michael Delage, the Frenchman. It's an all-French squad, the FDJ, as we can see. They're really picking up the pace at the front end of this main field, but still 2 minutes and 5 seconds separates the leading group of 7 and the main field. Nervousness